we are all so excited to have you all join us tonight at this wonderful Earth Sessions. So Earth Sessions are climate justice concerts co-produced by Intersectional Environmentalist and the Eyes and Ears Agency, and we bring together community through joyful, connective, and educational experiences.
And hello everyone, my name is Sammy. I founded the Eyes and Ears Agency, which is a social impact agency dedicated to building a bridge between value and mission-aligned artists and nonprofit organizations to increase collective awareness and create waves of social and environmental change through the power of art and music. I've been working with the team at IE for about a year now, creating Earth Sessions, infusing art with activism, and we're excited to say that this month is our 1-year anniversary of the launch of Earth Sessions. So thank you for this. We're feeling extremely excited tonight to be partnering with our friends and community, Allbirds, and wanted to extend a massive thank you to Trip and his team for helping bring this Earth Sessions in particular to life, and celebrating the launch of their new shoe, the Riser. We'd love to invite Trip to come and say a few words as well.
Thank you so much. Hi everyone, really good to meet you. I'm Trip. I'm the director of all things community at Allbirds. Don't know who we are, what Allbirds is. We are a sustainable sneaker company. We believe in the power of harnessing Mother Nature to create supernatural materials and make you a supernaturally comfortable shoe. That's my pitch tonight. Thank you. But I think all things community, which means that we get to work with amazing people like Kiana, Sammy, IE, Eyes and Ears, Local Roots, and Winjay in the back, providing an incredible meal tonight. We're supporting the well-being of people and the planet. So working with people, working with organizations that are doing amazing things out there in the world. And this is a beautiful expression of it. So thank you all so much for coming tonight. Really appreciate it. We'll have some risers for you to check out in the back later. Now just enjoy the conversation, enjoy the concert. Thanks.
Thank you, Trip. Lastly, we're also excited to share that the ticket proceeds for tonight were matched by Allbirds and donated to Start Empowerment, a local queer and BIPOC-led nonprofit at the nexus of climate education and environmental justice organizing.
They are amazing, and you should definitely check out their work as well. So as you all were trickling in earlier tonight, you might have grabbed one of the design books written by incredible authors of color on our left over here. And this is an extension of another IE program called the IE Free Bookstore, where every month we purchase hundreds of free books from local indie bookstores and then give them away to our community for free. And if you weren't able to get any of the books tonight, we're going to be working with Allbirds to do one of those online launches in a couple of weeks, so check that out and get one of those books online.
Our books tonight were also specially curated by all of our beautiful panelists, who you'll see in a moment, and sourced from local and BIPOC bookstore, Cups and Books. Can we give it up for our local bookstore? While we're on the topic of books, if everyone could lift their books up tonight, we'd love to snap a photo of what free access to books looks like. Yeah, hold it up high. Thank you. So beautiful.
So many beautiful colors, too. It's like our collective aura.
Yeah, if you haven't checked out the aura photos, too, pretty special. And now I'd love to have the mic over to Kiana to kick off our programming portion of the evening. So thank you all.
Thank you, Sammy. So as we get started with our programming tonight, we'd first like to recognize that we are currently on the unceded lands of the Canarsie and Munsee Lenape people. We honor these peoples as the past, present, and future stewards of this land. So as you all know, tonight's event is all about design, activism, and sustainability. So to get us in the mood, I'd love to get started with the visioning exercise. So if you all could close your eyes for a few moments and start to imagine what the future that you'd like to live in looks like. Now that your eyes are closed, I want you to imagine what this future feels like to your five senses. Think about what you would be doing in this future. Think about the person or the people that you would be with. And think about what the environment around you looks like in this future. So you can start to open your eyes slowly. Hopefully that was enough time to get you started. Personally, when I'm experiencing a lot of eco-anxiety or feeling overwhelmed by this work, I like to return to this exercise and think about what that future looks like for me. I hope that this vision grounds you for the rest of tonight and future as well. So I would now like to welcome to the stage Ashley, Willow, and Eileen to get us started with our panel. Hi!
Hello.
I'm so excited to be here with you all. I'm so excited for everyone to get to hear your incredible stories and the work that you all do. So to get us started, maybe you all can each introduce yourselves, a little bit about your work, the organizations you're a part of, and then we'll jump into our questions.
Hi everybody, my name is Eileen Tran. I'm the creative director of Intersectional Environmentalist. I'm from Philadelphia. Now happy to be here with you all.
Hi, I'm Willow Defebaugh, pronouns are she, her. I am the co-founder and editor-in-chief of Atmos magazine, which is a climate culture publication that tells stories about the environment through a lens of the arts and humanities. And I am from Michigan.
Hello everyone, my name is Ashley Comeaux. I am the Vice President of Product Design at Allbirds. I lead an incredible product design team across footwear and apparel. And I'm just incredibly thrilled to be here with all of you, so thank you all for coming. I'm from Miami, Florida.
Can we please give it up for all of our incredible panelists tonight? Okay, so one of the questions that at IE we always love to start conversations with is about origin stories. So really getting it to the idea of where the strive for care for the planet comes from for each of us. And we each have different origin stories. Some of them start when we were all super young, or they might have started just a few years ago, and there was this catalyst that started us down this pathway. For me personally, I am an Iranian immigrant. When I was 8 years old, my family moved from Iran to New Zealand, and that move was a big part of my origin story. I didn't speak any English, I didn't have any friends, and I was really struggling to assimilate to an entirely new environment. And so one day at my new school, a caretaker of the school came up to me and he handed me this butterfly sticker that I still have to this day. And he led me to this butterfly house that was at the center of my primary school. And he told me, you know, I've been seeing you eating lunch alone, and you could just come here and eat lunch and get to know the other folks at this butterfly house every day. And some of the first words of English that I learned were the words of conservation. And so from there, this beautiful drive and love for the earth was a big part of my life and a big part of my identity. But being Iranian, I always cared about human rights, and so I wanted to really go into human rights and do work around there. And it wasn't until I was 16 and I moved to the US where I started to understand environmental justice and how human rights and social justice and environmentalism come together in so many ways and are extremely interconnected. So that's my origin story, and I would love to hear yours.
As the daughter of immigrants, I feel like I've been living a life of sustainability without even realizing it or defining it as so. I'm sure if your parents are immigrants, you can all understand about conserving water or reducing food waste or reusing the same plastic bag 10 times before you throw it out. But when it comes to environmental justice, I think it all started when I made the switch when I dropped out of pharmacy school and I went to do art full time. And I went to art school, and it wasn't until that time that I took a class specifically on the climate crisis and how to combat the climate crisis. And I went to my first climate justice protest. Raise your hand if you ever been to a climate justice protest.
Yes!
That's where it all started, like seeing community, seeing everybody for a cause, all the streets. I started reading books like Parable of the Sower and reading works by Dr. Robert Bullard, father of EJ. And that year, I interned for IE. I started doing graphic design for IE, and the rest is history. I now do creative direction. Perfect.
All of the beautiful art that you see around tonight were all created by Eileen, and she's so talented, and I'm so in awe of her. Thank you.
So a lot of my background was working down at art and culture and fashion publications, and I spent the first half of the decade that I lived in New York really surrounded by some incredible storytellers. And I, at one point, was wondering what might happen if some of these amazing storytellers turned their gifts and their attention towards a cause that needed to be uplifted. And this was around 2018 when one of the most alarming IPCC reports to date was coming out, and all of the forest fires were ravaging California, and I felt like it was time to try doing something different. And it's what led me and my co-founder to starting Atmos, was really through this experimental question of what would it look like if we were told stories about the environment, not from just a clinical, journalistic, and scientific perspective, but from a human perspective. And from the very beginning, climate justice was a massive part of what we wanted to set out to do, because we knew that there was no separating the humanities from the environment. And for me, it became really personal the more I came into my queerness, my transness, because I think nature has always been such a guiding light for me in my life. But I think as queer people, we've often been exercised from the environment or felt like it's not something we can be a part of. And so much of where I found community in this space is understanding queer ecology and how queer nature is and how trans nature is. And to me, those things are totally inseparable from the rest of this work. So, queer ecology.
So, as I mentioned earlier, I'm from Miami, Florida. I'm also a daughter to two Honduran immigrant parents, and I would say, going back to my upbringing, I was essentially molded and sort of brought up through these two worlds. I was influenced by America and Honduras, and I would say my sort of exposure to this really beautiful period of life and culture in Honduras, surrounded by nature and all that it has to offer, really allowed me to understand the space that I took up as, an inhabitant of Earth. And then, you take that and you sort of juxtapose it next to my experience in America and the complexities of life and culture and all the things wrapped out into that, right? And I would say my experience in America allowed me to maybe fully realize the life that I could build for myself. But I would say my connection to nature was a little disconnected, where I think it was more formed around what nature could do for me versus what I could and should do in service of it. And so I think about, growing up in the US, and then I would frequent Honduras quite a bit. And so every time I went there, it was deeply therapeutic for me, and an opportunity for me to sort of regain this oneness with the earth and with nature. And I just thought that was a deeply impactful experience for me every time I had it. And so fast forward have a career now, full-on adult, married, kids, all the things. And, you think about, trying to reconcile the realities that we have today around the climate crisis that we're in and, the inequalities that exist for marginalized people and the interconnectivity of all those things wrapped into one, right? And I think about even my professional career where I had the privilege to create products, more specifically footwear, for, some of the biggest brands in the world, Reebok, Converse, and then more recently Nike. And I did that for the bulk of my career for 10 and a half years. And I think when I think about my environmental journey, admittedly, it's still in its infancy, at least professionally. And so I think it's just trying to navigate that aspect of it and being able to have the vision to take it, into the future, knowing the realities that we're dealing with today. And, now when I left my previous company, Nike, I did so with the pursuit of wanting to pivot my creative talents towards what I saw as the future of design, which is really rooted in sustainability and, doing so in service of the environment. And I would say Allbirds has really provided me that platform to be able to do that. And I've been with the brand now for 2.5 years. It's been amazing. It's really re-energized and reconfigured the way I approach design. And it's been a deeply impactful moment for me to be with the brand. And I would say when I think about the things that drive what I do and, the service of this conversation today, it's really that hope of that the product that I create with my team is hopefully a beacon of hope and inspires industry change. I mean, not just our industry, but other industries and designers and creatives to really, truly design with intent and really consider future generations. So yeah, it's my origin story.
That's so beautiful. Wow. Thank you all for sharing all of your origin stories. I think it's always so fascinating to learn where this drive comes from for each of us. And I think, culture and identity are such big parts of that. And the way that we get to weave those parts of ourselves into the work that we do and the creative work that we do is really, really beautiful. So thank you for all of the creativity that you bring into my life and into all of our lives. So I think the next question that I have for you is about how you each embed sustainability and justice into your design and creative practice. So if there are any, case studies of that or specific examples of how you enjoy doing that. I think for me personally, the art of gathering is something that I love to create. So events like this, bringing community together, is very much rooted in my culture. For a really long time, I think change has always been embedded in the idea of people coming together and experiencing joy and laughter and optimism and getting to dance with each other and getting to experience music. I think those are all really big parts of creativity and creating change in our world. So I'd love to hear about how you each do that and what some of your favorite creative projects have been.
As a graphic designer and artist, I think it's not enough to make work that is visually appealing or aesthetic or looks good to the eye. I think as we have standards with sustainability and ethics and justice as it pertains to our clothes or as it pertains to the products that we use, I think we should apply that to how we see art and design. And we should have more intentional decisions or as artists and also as consumers of art. We need to demand a little bit more about, what are the materials being used? How is this being printed? What is the story about the fonts or the typography that are being involved? How are we uplifting and amplifying the rich culture of art and design that is often overlooked, especially when it comes to educational institutions and art history? How can we use design as a way to really show the side that people often forget about when looking at art? And we have to make more intentional design choices as designers and artists that supports, again, the rich history and culture that we have before us. And I was very happy to lead the visual rebrand of IE and really look into the intentions, the stories, and how design can be a medium for storytelling. I was really happy to choose fonts from Trey Seals. If you received this book today, Dream in Color, Trey Seals is a type designer, a vocal type foundry, and he has digitized a lot of archival photos, posters, and signs from the 60s and 70s civil rights movements and liberation struggles of that time that back then were not digitized or archived properly. And so that's just an example of how we can make our design decisions a little bit more intentional and a little bit more effective, I guess. And along with our font library, we also have a beautiful primary and secondary color palette, graphics library that really reflect and are inspired by the movements of the 60s and 70s. And that's been one of my favorite projects at IE so far.
Ooh. I'm not sure if you know this, but a lot of our graphics are actually inspired by the Black Panthers and a lot of movements that were all around social justice. And so it's been really cool to see how we're now using them for environmental justice and seeing the power that they have in actually getting people to care about these issues and share these issues. So thank you, Eileen.
When I think about journalism and justice, what I think of them having in common is really asking questions. Questioning why things are the way that they are, questioning what the lineage is of the structures that we're operating within are. And for me as a journalist, it's so rewarding to incorporate that obviously within our storytelling, but also turning the questions around on the industry itself and the practice of journalism and what traditions we're carrying forward and what legacies we're continuing and which ones need to be disrupted. And one of the big talking points within journalism is the idea of objectivity always, right? Being removed from the stories that you're telling. And one of the big questions we went into the creation of Atmos with was, well, how much do we actually want to keep that? Because at the end of the day, we want to reach people in a place of heart. And to reach people at a place of heart, you need to reach them on a personal level. And so from the very beginning, we were really interested in having the people who are most affected by the stories that we were telling be the ones doing the storytelling, because that's what takes them to another level. Because we don't need stories that feel cold and disconnected. We need people to remember the humanity of the climate crisis, not just as something objective and happening to the earth, but to the people on it as well. And in terms of specific case studies and how design really comes into it for us, with each issue of Atmos, we always start with a theme that we try to capture some aspect of the human experience on Earth. And for us, when we look at storytelling, we always bring it into a 360 perspective. So how can the design be a part of that? So our most recent issue that just came out, the theme is rhythm, and it's looking at how do we realign with the rhythms of the natural world, with the cycles and the seasons. And so for us, not just with the words that were told in the pictures in the magazine, but also the graphic design, how do we create an experience reading the magazine that feels rhythmic, that feels cyclical? How do we bring in the experience of the sun and the moon and phases within the typography? Another issue that comes to mind was our fourth issue, Cascade, which came out at the start of the pandemic, and the theme was really looking at chaos. And so we had all of this disruptive type and things that were really not the size that you wanted to see the font to be, and all of these things that made the magazine hopefully feel
immersive, because I think design has the same capability that words and photography does to really bring you into a story and to make you feel the impact of the stories that are being told.
Wow, I think that you put it so beautifully, because that is the experience that I have when I interact with the magazines of Atmos, the posts. I genuinely feel like I am in those landscapes. And I think they are so beautiful and do such a good job of that immersive experience.
That's great. Yeah, I think when I think about product design and product creation at large, I feel like it's essentially, these are artifacts that we're creating that are, sort of sign of the times, and in essence should be, art design should be, in my mind at least, reflective of the future that we want to see, right? And so, doing this work is a day in the life at Allbirds, and I think it's a privilege to be able to be a part of something that's larger than ourselves and in support of a future that we want to see. And so, I take, for instance, I'm going to talk about the riser, how fitting, right? So the riser, for example, is a beautiful model that the team and I came together on to imagine a more style-forward silhouette that doesn't compromise our values around natural materials and innovation with regard to that. And, we're bringing together, organic cotton canvas, Tencel, lyocell, ripstop. We have ZQ, merino wool. And then we have our sweet foam platform, which is, made from sugar and natural rubber. And I think what we set out to do every day is to, in essence, prove that you don't have to sacrifice, style and expression in your footwear or with anything, really, at the cost of just making product responsibly. So I think it's a great question. I think it's just ultimately at the root of what we do at Allbirds every day. And I think it's something that fuels us, and it's really enriching to work with a team who are all on the same page and all down for the cause, so to speak, right? So, yeah.
Thank you. I think I mentioned earlier that I grew up in New Zealand after moving from Iran, and so I have a very special place in my heart for Allbirds, because they were founded in New Zealand, and so every time I go home, I actually take my entire family Allbirds shoes, and we go to the Allbirds store in the city, and I get everyone their shoes, and it's really cool to know that these shoes that we're wearing are so in line with the values of our family and also our country, and there's a beautiful sense of pride to it. So it's really cool to hear you talk about the intentionality that goes into creating these products. So earlier we talked a little bit about future building, and we did this exercise of imagining what a future that we all want to live in looks like. And the reason I love that question and why we started to ask that question a lot is because when we were founded as an organization in 2020, our motto was dismantling systems of oppression. And I think that is really important. And I think as a part of our work every day, we are dismantling systems of oppression. But at some point, we realized that so much of our conversation was about destruction and about tearing down these systems, and all of that is really important and it needs to happen. But our community was feeling really overwhelmed because they were learning about all of these issues, but then they were like, okay, what do we do about it? What is it that we're actually trying to build? And that's where this idea of radical imagination has become a really core part of our organization. And optimism and joy have really centered the work that we do, because we want to be actively building that future in little bits and pieces, in our little parts of our lives, in spaces like this. We want to be living that future actively so that then it spreads and it spreads and it spreads, and we're living in a future where our whole society is living in that. So that's where that question comes from, and I would like to ask each of you, when you think about the future of design and justice and sustainability, what does it look like to you?
I think when it comes to the future of design, I want it to be full of empathy and kindness at its core. And it sounds weird to say this, but I want the future of design to be human, because I think with the rise of ChatGPT and artificial intelligence, we become distracted or we become fixated on these tools that are new and can make our life easier. But I think we forget about the social responsibility that comes with technology and with these programs that we use as artificial intelligence becomes more integrated, kind of disguised in a way in a lot of the technology that we use. But as we think about the social responsibility and ethics of, again, like the products and clothes, we should think about how we have to be responsible about the technologies that we use. And we have to think about whether it promotes harmful practices. And we can't leave that out as we, become a very technology-focused future. We have to be grounded in our roots on, especially with design, where it all started, looking back at our history, looking back at analog practices, because we have to look at the culture that we're coming from, especially as it pertains to art and design. And there's just something irreplaceable about that. I think we can't forget where we came from, about all the analog practices and just being human authentically as possible. Yeah.
I love that. Fun story. My background is actually in artificial intelligence. That's what I studied in college. So I'm an engineer. And so I think about this question a lot. How do we, embed technology in what our future looks like? And if you all are familiar with the solar punk movement, I find a lot of inspiration in that movement. And it's not perfect. And, I think there is a role that technology has to play in our future. But solar punk envisions technology growing and innovating alongside with us to build a future that is harmonious with the planet, with people, and technology all living together. And so there are some really cool images around solar punk that I would recommend.
Well, I think this is very telling for what brings us all together, because you literally took the words out of my mouth. Eileen, I was going to say, I hope
the words out of my mouth too.
I was going to say, I hope the future of design is human, but I'll grow from there and say also that when I think of design and creativity, I think that that's actually what we have in common with nature. When I look to the natural world, it is this incredible lattice work of evolution and intelligence that is just beyond any of our comprehension. And I'll never forget the very first interview I ever did for Atmos 5 years ago. Was with a musician named Ononi, and she said to me, "We're all just playing in Mother Nature's sandbox. We're playing dress up, we're trying to imitate her unfurling forms and shapes and emulate her creativity." And I think about that almost every day because I think our creativity is what makes us human, but it's also what makes us of this earth. And so I hope that we never lose sight of that, because I think within all of these conversations about AI and everything else, I hope that artists can remain at the center of those conversations. I'm always wary of binary thinking, so I'm trying to stay open to AI. As long as artists can remain at the heart of it and design and creativity, because that is what makes us human and it is what makes us part of nature.
Yeah, we can clap. I think for me, my future or my vision of the future is simply rooted in radical empathy. So very much in line with, what we're saying up here. When I think about product creation and the fact that we create products today for ourselves, for, eventually customers, and we create these products for moments, fleeting moments. that ultimately have an impact on the environment for future generations to come, right? And I think the idea of designing today with future generations in mind who will be around after we're long gone is futuristic. And I think to employ that practice or to begin to and do so, in essence, in unison with all of, the companies and people who create today, I think would just be the most impactful thing. And it's, when I say radical empathy, it's really putting yourselves in the shoes of, and pun intended or not intended, putting yourself
risers.
putting yourself on the risers, putting yourself in the shoes of, those who will come after us and trying to envision what the world will be like for them, and doing so proactively, I think, is radically empathetic. And, as designers, our sole job is to design and problem solve, essentially, like solve for pain points for customers to make products better so that you can live your daily lives all the more better with just, the slightest improvement. And so to do that on an amplified level, I think, is futuristic, it's genius, and that's my hope for the future.
Oh, all of those sound so beautiful. And I'm really excited to see what each of you will continue to create and bring to life, and how you will bring empathy and humanity to all of the things that you create. So thank you so much for a really, really lovely conversation tonight. And I hope you all get to go up to Eileen, Willow, and Ashley and ask them about their creative processes and all the incredible work that they're doing these days. So that's it for our panel conversation. And give us about 10 minutes to set up the stage for the incredible Addy Oasis to join us and bring that musical aspect to our Earth sessions tonight. And thank you again for being here tonight. One more round of applause for our panel.
Thank you.